Hey everyone, welcome back to the Low Buy Life. I am Leslie, and I don't know what is going on with the sun every time I record. Maybe I can fix it. So, anyway, today I wanted to talk to you about why my husband and I don't combine finances and why you may or may not want to either. And for this, there's really no one answer for everyone. It kind of just depends on your situation. So, let's get into some of the pros and cons of combining your finances. So, for my husband and I, one of the main reasons that this works really well for us having separate finances is because we were together for a long time before we got married. We've been together for like 9 years, and we've been living together for like 6 or 7, like a good chunk of that. So we were already living together and we had our daughter long before we actually got married. So this setup is one that we've actually been used to for a long time. So it just seemed kind of natural to keep going with it because it works so well for us. So that is a little disclaimer I wanted to throw in there that we've kind of been doing the system for a long time already. So on the pro side, less number one is less side eyeing purchases. So what I mean by that is if you have access to the same account and your finances are combined, you might see your partner buying things that you don't necessarily agree with, like making small purchases here and there, and you're kind of like, I don't know if you should have bought that. So a lot of these little kind of petty things that might pop up. So I know for me, I really don't like making small purchases at like convenience stores. So stopping by 7-Eleven, I really don't like doing that more than maybe once a week. And when we do, it's like a whole event because we're out doing laundry anyway. But my husband, he tends to buy a lot of little snacks and coffees and stuff like that. And it does fit into our budget. I mean, it's not that serious if he does it, but it's something that I definitely wouldn't want to do myself. And I don't know if I want to see it actually pop up all the time that he's making all these small stops. I know it's kind of more of a psychological thing because like I said, it does fit into our budget. We're not so strapped right now that we have to be super strict with everything and he is able to do that. But it's yeah, it's one thing to kind of know it's happening, it's another to see it on paper and be evaluating it. And on the other side, he probably doesn't want to see some of the things that I'm spending my money on. I know when I spent so much money on books last month, if he had seen each individual purchase for the books I was buying, he would have done the same thing for me. So I think for us, it even though we know that it's happening, it still leads to fewer arguments because we don't see it in front of us. I don't know if that sounds bad, but hopefully you understand what I mean. Number 2 is a big one for me, and it is more autonomy. So I before we got together, I had spent a long time just living on my own and managing my own finances, and I really enjoy that aspect of doing everything myself. So having our separate finances allows us both to have more autonomy with what we're doing with our budget and everything like that. So, for example, we can really handle our money. I'm sorry, I'm reading off my list. So, for example, we can really handle our money the way we want to. So, for me, I am more of a saver than an investor. It's definitely important to do both, but I tend to prioritize savings a little bit more, just because I do like having that money on hand and ready to go rather than having it invested. The most investing I really do is for my 401k and my Roth 401 for the is that what it's called? Roth 401k? It's I have 2 anyway, so my investing is mostly just for that type of retirement, but I'm actually really grateful that my husband is super into investing, so he can handle that aspect of it, and so he does a lot of investing, and he actually doesn't do any saving at all. Any money that he has extra, he puts straight into investing. So it actually works out really well that I handle the saving and he handles the investing, so if you have a situation like that, that is definitely ideal where you each have your own roles. Also, I like to track every dollar. I am so uptight with wanting to know where my money is going. I'm not super uptight with sticking to an actual budget number, but I am very controlling, I guess you could say, with wanting to know where every dollar is going. And it's fairly simple to do that with my own budget. And in some ways, sometimes it actually helps me spend less money because I'm like, do I actually want to track this like $2 purchase? And I might as well just not get it because I don't feel like tracking $2. So it does work to my advantage in many cases. So I like doing that. But my husband, on the other hand, he just likes having kind of a general idea. He did track for a long time and then kind of saw the like the flow of like the trends. That's the word I'm looking for. He saw the trends in his spending and he kind of just spends the same all the time. So he already knows in his head like kind of what he's spending. So we definitely differ in that way. Also, we tend to buy our own groceries and do our own discretionary spending so that keeping our finances separate allows us to do that. And then finally, in this category, it's something that you don't necessarily want to think about, but it's still important. And that is if it hits the fan, if things don't work out between you and your partner, you still have some of your own money. You don't have everything in one account. You don't have, I don't know if someone would like, if things get really tense, I don't know if someone might lock someone else out of an account. I don't know the details of all that because that is not the kind of person I am. But I mean, things happen. So yeah, it really helps to just have your own money and both of you. It's important for both parties to have their own money. So if things do go awry, something happens between you, you split up. I mean, I know it's something none of us want to think about, but you never know. I mean, I'm sure people who get divorced or split up, they don't go into a relationship thinking they're going to do that. So it's definitely something that you need to keep in mind that if something does happen, you have your own money and you're set. I think it's just I just really think it's so important for everyone to have their own money like that. So even if you do combine finances, if you each maybe have like a small savings account, I think that would be really important. But again, it's up to you. Just make sure you plan for some of those things that you might not expect. So number three, it works very well for inconsistent income or if you have a very divided income. So for example, my husband makes quite a bit more than me. And then I have my normal 9 to 5 job, but then I do have things like an Etsy income. I am starting to make a little tiny bit of money on YouTube, not much at all. I think I made like $5. But I sometimes I sell stuff on eBay. I have some of these little things that I do to make some extra money. So my income can vary a little bit based on that. I guess this one isn't like a huge issue because I think most couples they do have a somewhat different income. I mean, I think it's pretty rare to make the exact same amount. So this might be less of an issue, but it's still something to consider. Number four, you have your clear responsibilities. And this is one thing that I definitely love as well. As I mentioned before, my husband's the investor, I'm the saver. We split up our expenses. So we definitely don't do 50-50. We don't split based on a percentage of our income. What we do is that he handles rent, things like utilities, our internet bill, things like that. We have our own cell phone bills. I handle basically everything involving our daughter. So any kind of childcare expenses, new clothes she needs, toys, like any of that stuff. I generally handle all of that. Our own personal expenses that we might need if we need new clothes, if we want like a discretionary item, then we do that stuff separately. So I really like that we have our own roles. And if it's not super strict. I mean, if there is a time where our daughter needs a whole lot, or maybe it's Christmas, he will pay for a little bit as well. So we just, I mean, I guess the key here is just communicating. We tend to communicate like, hey, I'm running a little low because I had a lot more expenses. Can you pay for this time? And vice versa. My voice is still I had bronchitis like a few weeks ago and my voice is still suffering. So hopefully that's not too annoying. I'm cutting out the parts where I'm like frequently clearing my throat. So number five, it definitely helps if one of you is a saver and one of you is a spender. So especially if it's a pretty significant difference. So I would say I'm a bit more of a saver and my husband you know what? I don't even know how I would say it because we're pretty evenly matched with a lot of this. I would say I might be slightly more on the saving side, but now that his income increased last year, when he got a new job, a lot of the extra money he got, he is putting into saving. So I guess he is also quite a bit of a saver. If one of you is a saver and one of you is a spender, then it can definitely help to have separate accounts, just to reduce some of the friction between you, and also you don't have to worry about the spender spending too much of the money that you're trying to save. So if you have the same account, they might be pulling out too much money and it just leads to tension and conflict and no one wants any of that. So if they have their own money, it can definitely help to reduce some of those potential arguments. And number six kind of brings together some of the ones I've already mentioned before, but it is easier budgeting. So if you only have your one account to or your one income to keep track of, you have all of your own accounts. You don't have to worry about tracking accounts for two different people and purchases and expenses for two different people. It can be really overwhelming. Like I mentioned, I know if I had to track all of my husband's expenses, I would probably be losing my mind because he does have a lot of those small purchases that he makes with like a snack or a coffee or whatever it is here and there. And also, I'm not gonna lie, I tend to procrastinate with my budgeting. So I only go through my budget once a month. I know some people do it every paycheck or every week, which probably would be better, but my spending is pretty consistent. So honestly, I don't think I need to do it more than once a month. But since I do wait and only do it at the end of every month, I do have a lot of things to track. So if I had to double that, it would be a pretty big increase on my workload. Now, if I only had a part-time job or I worked less or stayed at home, it might be a little bit different. I wouldn't mind devoting so much time to that, but I'm so busy as it is, I don't want to devote double the time to doing the budget. And especially since we're doing pretty well on money, I mean, our focus is really just saving and paying off our student loans. I mean, the student loans is a big one for us that we're trying to work on. So since we're not super tight on the budget, then it doesn't really matter to track it that closely anyway. Number 7, I think it can reduce resentment over finances a bit. So how my husband makes more than me, I I wouldn't want to I wouldn't want for him to think that I'm overspending based on the fact that I make less than him, if that makes sense. So I think in both cases it could reduce resentment. I mean, maybe if you don't make as much money as your partner, you might feel resentment that way as well. So it can kind of go either way. So I think it can help to reduce that. And number 8 is kind of, I guess isn't quite as big of a deal, but we are able to give each other gifts and help each other out more, and it means more. So if we all pooled our money into one account, we would basically be taking money from each other to buy each other gifts and things like that. But in this case, we can use our own money to buy each other like a birthday gift or a Christmas gift, or like I mentioned before, if one of us is a little bit low on money, then we can give each other money to help each other out. I know my husband does that for me more than I do it for him. But I know in some cases where maybe he moved all of his money to investing already, and then he has an expense that comes up and he doesn't want to have to pull the money back out of what he invested. So I'll be like, "Hey, I'll give you the money." And so I'll send him a little bit. So we do send money back and forth here and there, but it's more of like it's not to keep everything perfectly equal, it's more to just help each other out and just do something nice for each other, and I really like that we do that, so that's something that's pretty cool if you do have separate finances. I feel like this video is longer than I meant it to be, but I feel like once I edit out all of my coughing and my sips of water, it will probably be half the time, that I see right now. So cons, there definitely are some cons to having your finances separate. So it is more logistics, as in there is more tracking because you are tracking double the amount of things, but you are doing it separately. So it's I guess it's more to track in one way and then but less for each individual person. I know that sounds kind of weird. But you also need to have more check-ins with each other because you're not directly seeing each other's accounts. So you do need to make sure you're communicating really well. And then again, you might be transferring money between each other the way I mentioned my husband and I do sometimes. But like I said, we don't mind. We kind of look at it as a positive thing. So that I don't know. I guess it depends on your mindset. And then number 2, it does require stronger communication because as I said, you're not seeing the money being pulled out from each other's accounts. But we actually really like this part because we'd talked before about whether or not we should combine finances, but my husband was like, "I mean, if we just talk to each other, like there's really no need to combine everything." And he's completely right. I mean, we actually really like that aspect that we have to communicate with each other about our finances. And we talk about money all the time. Like I can't believe there are people who don't talk about money at all, especially if they are married or even in a relationship. I think it's so important to make sure that you know where each other stands financially. I sometimes I do watch Financial Audit with Caleb Hammer, and the fact that some of these partners are just completely left in the dark, it just blows my mind. And number 3, it might feel like less of a team to some people, although, like I mentioned, I a lot of these cons I feel like don't apply to us specifically, and that's probably why we don't combine finances, but I think for us, we almost feel like more of a team just because we do have to divide things out and communicate, but I can see how for some people you might feel like less of a team or less of a partnership because everything is separate. But I guess that really just comes down to personal preference and how you feel about everything. Number 4, it is true that unequal income can feel a bit tricky. I know this was also part of the pro side, but it is part of the the con side too, that if you do have very, very different income, it can be kind of hard to split everything up, especially if you are going for, like, a 50-50 thing or, like, a percentage of income. So I don't wanna get too personal, but this was actually kind of an issue in my last relationship, because before all this, I did live with someone else for a while, and we split everything 50-50, but he made more than me, and so I was always putting so much more of my income towards things than he was, and I always felt like it wasn't fair, but I didn't quite have I didn't really know how to I was young, so I'll just leave it at that, but I it was something that was difficult, so if you are going for something like that, then having separate income can be a bit rough because you do feel sometimes like the division isn't fair, which it's not. If someone does make a lot more than someone else, then doing everything 50-50 really isn't fair. So then you have to figure out, okay, are we doing like a percentage of our incomes? And things just get a little bit more tricky. But I know with my current situation, my husband and I, we have things worked out so well and divided things up instead of based on dollar amounts. It's more of like our categories are kind of divided up, but it seems to work. Number 5, long-term goals need coordination, and this just goes back to the communication aspect. So if you have something like, a vacation that you wanna plan or your retirement or, like, a really long-term goal like retirement, it does require communication between the both of you to see where you're standing if you're on the same page. So, for example, we are hoping to take a really big vacation, and we're trying to save up, like, several thousand dollars to take this vacation, so we have to be on the same page about how we're saving for it. And also with the retirement, we both save for retirement. He saves a little bit less than I do as far as the 401k, but like I said, he does do a lot of his own, personal investing, so it's just something that we check in with each other and see how we're doing. And number 6 is the final thing, and that is social judgment. So it is quite possible that other people will judge you if they find out that your finances are separated. And I'm not gonna lie, that's actually one of the things I was concerned about with this channel, is that if people found out that my husband and I don't combine finances, I was afraid I would get I was afraid I would get comments like, "Why are your finances separate? Like, why don't you combine things? Like, aren't you married?" And actually, I haven't gotten one comment like that yet. I might on this video, I don't know, but I haven't so far, I haven't gotten one comment like that. So it seems like it's not a big deal for people, especially nowadays. I think maybe for older generations, they might find it a bit more strange, but it seems to be something that's more common now. So I don't know if this is quite as big of a deal as it would have been in the past. And remember, people will always have their opinions on of you. Like I know before my husband and I were married, we were unmarried and then we had a kid together and she was planned and people had a lot of issues with that when if they found out. But I mean, we didn't care. We knew our situation. We knew that we would stay together for a long time, and clearly we did because we ended up getting married. But that's neither here nor there. But my whole point is that people will judge you no matter what you do. So you really just need to do what's best for you, and they can have their opinions. That's fine. But I guess the whole takeaway here is that combining your finances does not mean you do or do not trust your partner. It is just it's very dependent on your situation and your goals and how you feel. And then conversely, separating your finances doesn't mean you have issues. I mean, that was one of the things I was kind of concerned with. I didn't want people to think that, we weren't serious about our marriage or that we had issues or financial issues because quite the opposite. We were really on the same page with the finance stuff, which is so awesome. But I was definitely kind of worried that people would think that we had issues there, which we don't. But then again, like I said, people are going to have their opinions no matter what. So I did want to add that you never know, this could change in the future. I could completely change my mind. If I do, you'll definitely see a video on it. And we definitely think of it as all our money. So even though it's in separate places and it's not combined, we do think of it as all our money, which is why we're so willing to kind of transfer money back and forth because without keeping track of everything, like, hey, I sent you $100. You need to send me $100 this time. And we definitely don't do anything like that because we're working towards all the same goals. So we're very much helping each other out with working towards our goals, if that makes sense. So, I would love to hear from you in the comments. I want to know if you and your partner, whether you're a spouse or dating, whatever it is, let me know if you combine your finances or if you keep them separate. Is this something that you struggled with at all, or did people judge you when they found out your decision? I would just love some feedback on this. And before my voice completely gives out, thank you so much for being here. And I just hit 1,000 subscribers, so I just appreciate every one of you so much. Make sure you leave me a comment, a like, and subscribe if you're not already, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.